appreciate you guys being here. I really do, like I always say, and I mean this wholeheartedly. The local media covering our Memphis football program means a lot to me and to this university, and I think to this city. So I appreciate y'all being out here. Obviously, day one in the books. Every head coach is going to be pleased with some things and then say there's a lot of things to be corrected, and I'm certainly falling in line with that. We did some nice things fundamentally. Obviously, this day and age of OTAs, right? Install one should be pretty smooth. We got some young guys that look like their heads were on a swivel trying to figure out their left from their right and their butt from their elbow. But, they went out there and what I asked them to give was full effort. To be quite frank with you guys, I thought it was actually cooler than I thought it would be, right? They listed at 95 and a heat warning, but it was the coolest 95 I ever felt in my life with too much cloud coverage and too much breeze. So I wish it was a little bit hotter and humid, but maybe we'll get some more of that in camp. But look, we got a handful of guys that are stepping up and look, a lot to be determined. I know you guys are going to ask, anybody stand out on day one? I know that's the question that's coming. The reality of it is still got quite a few hours of film to watch, and it was just day one practicing in underwear. So some good things, but the effort was there, and we got a lot of work to do, but excited about the direction of this. I think the guys' mindset and approach is there, but a lot of work to continue to be done.
Well, when you, obviously, not in terms of depth chart, but just in terms of the bodies that you have at each position, what positions are you excited about in terms of just the depth that you have?
I think, like I've said, Frank, before, this is the most depth we've ever had at offensive line since I've been here. And, man, if you talk to any coach in college football, right, all 130 FCS, coaches would say, or Division I coaches, they would say, yeah, if we had O-line depth, that's huge. And I think that's where we got it. To be able to return all of our tight ends that played significantly last year has been great. And then, we got a handful of guys at the running back position. And then, as you guys look at it, we added a ton of different safeties. And we're going to play a multitude of defenses, but you look back there in the defensive back room, you'll say, man, who are all these guys? And that's what, when people are asking about depth at the DB room, it's really going to unfold over camp. And I'm excited to see those guys. A lot of new faces of the defensive line, which is good to have depth there because we're going to need all hands on deck.
Ryan, last training camp, the mantra was finish based off the previous year. Worked out pretty well. Do you guys have a mantra or a phrase going to this camp?
Yeah, that's been asked to me earlier, and I think for us, I kind of want to create our own as we go through camp. What are we? What's our identity as a team? And one of the things I did as we went along that is to kind of say, okay, as a position group, what are we each known for? What's our identity as position group? So like tonight, the wide receivers are going to speak in front of our entire team, right? Their nickname is the Hot Boys. Well, I'm excited to find out what the hell the Hot Boys are, right? What's their identity and what can we hold them accountable to? So each position group is going to have their own unique name, something they stand for, what can the whole team hold them accountable for? Okay, and then they're going to put it on display. Then we got a bunch of position groups, which is great, which ultimately create, right, units. The defense is calling themselves the dark side. Oh, look forward to figuring out what the hell that means, right? Offense has one goal, right? Because I don't care about individual stats, right? We're all about one goal, and that's just going 1-0 and winning the day and winning the game. And then collectively, let's put all that together and come up with a theme and a mantra, an identity as a team. We're still going to talk about being all in with everything we do, and that will never change as long as I'm the head coach here. But I think we're going to figure out who we are, right? We're still going to be a smart, tough, disciplined, explosive football team. But, man, let these practices in the heat figure out who we truly are.
Ryan, I know that, it's one game at a time and all that, but the expectations are high this year. How are you addressing that kind of with the team? Because, the kids, they're going to, hear it. So how are you kind of facing that?
Yeah, up until really, and I mentioned this yesterday, and then from this team meeting yesterday on, we're not going to talk about championships. We're not talking about college football playoffs. We're not talking about what the media thought of us. No one has higher expectations for ourselves than ourselves. I mean, look, I'm so glad that people think highly of us, that there's some outside attention on the Memphis Tiger football program. It's kudos to those that came before us and the work put in. But like I said, even at Media Day, we haven't accomplished a damn thing, and there's a lot of work to be done. And so like we do every single year, and this is not coach speak, we truly put the blinders on, right? Like, let's focus on this. As you guys will know, in a couple weeks I get off social media because guess what? I can get distracted. When we're doing a good job, you guys are going to pat me in the butt and tell me, hey, you're a good coach. And when we don't do a good enough job, you're going to want me fired and run me out of town. And that's okay. That's everybody's job. And our players feel the same. A guy like a quarterback, hey, just focus on what you can, getting better every single day. So I want our guys to say, okay, I'm going to be the best version of myself every single day with a growth mindset and go 1-0 today. And what I told them, I said, let's just work. Let's just figure out where things go, work our tails off. And when the dust settles, let's look up in December In December, hey, let's pull the blinders off. Where are we? And hopefully we've accomplished what we set out to do, but we're not going to talk about it other than we have. Just continue to keep the focus. And it's easier said than done with 17 to 23-year-olds. If any of you guys have had young men in your lives or adult kids that are growing, it's hard for even someone my age, but we're going to continue to do it, and it's a challenge. But we talk about having that focus and improving.
Right, now that you're here and you got the roster kind of set, looking back on the offseason and kind of where we are with college football and the transfer portal in terms of players maybe getting recruited who aren't in the portal, especially at a program like this from Power Conference schools. How do you kind of manage that, and how has that gone, and has that happened kind of throughout the offseason?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's if any coach tells you tampering doesn't exist, they truly have blinders on and have no clue what's going on in society, or they're just full of crap. And every coach knows it goes on. I think, yeah, I mean, multitude of our players, from our starters, even guys that were role players, other staffs reached out to, right? Maybe it was a high school coach or a 7-on-7 coach or a handler or an agent said, hey, you could transfer to this school for this amount of money, or they can guarantee you a starting job, or if you go here, you're going to be a first-round pick. But I think like I've mentioned before, Jonah's, those relationships that we built along the way is hopefully there's been some trust and rapport built where these guys say, you know what, I really believe in what we're doing here. I bought into this culture. It's a really good thing for me to stay here. And so fortunate that so many of our guys said, hey, I want to be a part of this 2024 football team. And it's a continued battle. I mean, it's just the nature of it, right? Continue to build those relationships, trust in one another, and know that we're going to maximize them and hold them accountable so they can achieve their goals. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're able to keep so many of our own guys that said, I want to be a part of this. And look, with that being said, our guys are probably still being recruited right now. I know I've talked to a lot of SEC teams. They say they start recruiting our roster after the third game. So I'm sure our guys will start getting contacted at that point on. But our guys got to keep the focus, and that's the nature of it. And we'll continue to battle and fight those good fights. And hopefully those that want to be Memphis Tigers will stay and be champions.
Is that something you're managing that during the season too, not just in the
Oh, all the time. I don't take this lightly. I've spent bye weeks instead of going and watching a high school prospect, spending time with parents of our current players, because I believe in our current roster, and it's our job to develop them as coaches. If I can continue to sell everybody and talk to, hey, this is what we're all about, and this is the opportunities we can provide, that's as important as anything. The job as a head coach, the job as a football staff, as we know, it's changed in a variety of ways. And I'm not complaining. It's just what the task at hand are asked for. And it's my honor that I get to fight my tail off to keep these guys part of our team, and the right ones stay. We had a few guys, we had 3 starters that decided to transfer before the bowl game. And 3 of them had all told me they had been reached out to way prior. And that's okay. That's the nature of it. And look, I'm excited to be here, and those that want to stay and that believe in the way we do things are truly all in, good things will come.
What's new with Ryan Silverfield going to this season? I know every year I ask you, what would you tell yourself the past year? What would you tell this version of you, the version of you last year?
Well, what's new? A little bit more gray in the beard. The stomach is not as shrunk like I was hoping it to, and maybe read a few more books and went to some good concerts and trying to keep up with you on social media, Devin. But other than that, what's new with me is, look, I've got to continue to improve as a head coach. I've seen, too many coaches lose games, lose programs, don't do right by their culture, by their own egos. And every coach has an ego. Every coach should have confidence. If not, you shouldn't be a head coach. And I certainly probably have both. But the reality of this is I know I have a ton of work to do. What the hell have I accomplished? I've got so much to improve upon myself. Any loss, anything that's not good enough, it's 100% on me, because this is my program, and I've got to find a way to get it done. And it'll always start with me. And so I think, in the offseason, how can I be a better leader? How can I coach differently? How can I get the most out of our guys? How can I love harder? How can I continue to pour into these guys so they go out there and be better men and better citizens and find ways to win games? And that's what it's ultimately all about. All-inclusive, trying to find ways to serve these young men. And I don't take that lightly. I mean, the day the bowl game was over, the next day, man, as much as I wanted to sit on my tail and relax, there's no time for that, okay? What can I do for this program? What can I do? Maybe go and shaking hands to raise money so we can build a new academic football center, right? What else can we do? How can we go get NIL for our guys? What else can we pour into them? Hey, is there something I can learn from X's and O's? I actually went out and visited my good friend Dan Lanning and watched a couple of their spring practices, and we bounced ideas off each other. Hey, he's a fantastic coach. There'll be a top 5 program in the country. But it was great for me and him to sit there and have open relationships and talk about, hey, man, what do you think about this? he would say, Coach, Ryan, no one's ever told me what I'm doing wrong here. What did you see differently? And he told me, and I saw some things. We learned from each other, and I got to continue to do that, right? Not only from an X and O standpoint, from a culture standpoint. And the day I stop learning, the day I stop improving, and the day I stop putting the blame on myself with this program, then shame on us, and I'll step down as the coach.
Talk about how many guys stayed in the program despite opportunities elsewhere. In the current day and age of college football, if you put in the words how advantageous it is to have a good fourth-year starting quarterback returning to his top 2 pass catchers last year, offense coordinator, linebacker in the middle of the defense, all these things that a lot of programs don't have as far as continuity.
It allowed me to sleep a little bit better when the transfer portal closed, right? And people stopped coming after Tam Cranzy. So it allowed me to have a smile on my face most of the offseason, and it allowed me to sleep a little bit better because it's huge. Let's call it what it is. I mean, the return of Seth Hennigan for a 4-year starter with the ability, I mean, I've challenged, I'm still waiting for, I think Frank was going to give me the information, how many quarterbacks have stayed at one program and been 4-year starters with the same head coach. So when Frank digs into it, he'll maybe let me know that information. But the reality of it is it's important, right? Those receivers coming back, the tight end, the offense core. So, look, we did some really good things on offense, but we also lost Blake Watson, over 1,000-yard back. Let's not lose sight of that. We lost some good offensive linemen. There's some pieces, and guess what? We've got to get better. We weren't a complete team last year. Right? I mean, we've got so many things to improve. You watch the first half of Charlotte, right? The first quarter of Boise. I mean, there's just so many. I mean, there's a ton of room for improvement, and those guys know. And I challenge Seth. Seth has to be significantly better this year because we got more challenges than we've ever had. And so it's great, but it doesn't mean a damn thing.
Coach, I know you're keeping the blinders on, but when you look at this team, do you feel like this is the most prepared team you are to maybe kind of achieve some of those expectations that people are setting out for you?
Yeah, I keep the blinders on, but I know welcome back from Oxford. I know you're down there covering another football team, but you should stick to the one in Memphis. Yeah, good. That's great. With all that being said, yeah, I mean, look, it's the goals are out there, right? And we talk about them, but reality and this is right now. It's getting better every single day. I mean, we talked. I don't hide it from anyone. We talked about college football playoffs. I talk about it more than any probably coach in the country in recruiting, right? I talked about the AAC championship more than any other coach maybe in our conference. But now, that doesn't mean a thing. We've got to go out there and find a way to get better, because if we didn't improve in practice number 1 and we don't get better in practice number 2, then it was just writing on the wall. And so it's my job to make that focus, keep those blinders on, and it's a challenge. It really is. This day and age, with all the things on social media, with people talking about the expectations, which are great things, how do we keep our focus and continue to demand? Because it's very easy to sit back and say, oh, we're good. We got everybody on offense back. We're heck no. And so I've got to put the foot on the gas and continue to push. I told our guys I'm going to strain them harder than I've ever strained them for this first 2 weeks of training camp. We're going to take care of their bodies and make sure they're healthy, but we've got to work.
Ryan, you said that, at 1-0 and all that, but have you had any time to kind of reflect this offseason that this is actually your team? These are guys that you brought in as a head coach. Has that entered your mind at all, and kind of how you prepared for this season?
It's interesting. I heard a head coach say a couple of years, like, as soon as you get to a team, they're all your guys, right? You can't sit there and say, hey, this was Mike Norvell's team, or these. They're ours. In this day and age with roster turnover, guess what? I'd just like to see the number of guys who were still here from when I initially took the job, before the Cotton Bowl. And I don't know if there's anybody left, and the staff's the same way. So I'd like to take ownership of everything in this program and understand it's my job, right? Not only from an academic standpoint, but what we do on the field and everything we do. It's under my watch. I got to make sure it's right. But I felt that very day, since even the day I was named the interim head coach. And I got named interim after, that game, the championship game, that night. And then since then I said, you know what, this is my job, and I got to take it by the horns and see where we can take this thing. And that hadn't changed. So every guy, even on that roster, even if I was going to have them for 28 more days, those were my boys, and we were rolling.
A lot of us were in this room, or were at the Cotton Bowl, at that first press conference after you were named interim coach. Your first press conference we saw you in as the head coach for the University of Memphis. Sitting here today, starting your 5th year, head coach at the University of Memphis. What would today's Ryan Silverfield look back at 2019 Ryan Silverfield? What are some just a couple of lessons that you say, man, if I had known this back then,
Well, one, I wish I knew all the rule changes were going to occur, right? You know, I might be coaching the NFL instead of taking this job. No, there's been quite a lot of changes, but reality of it is it's the learning every single year, right? I've matured not only as a coach but as a person. I've learned patience. That's one of the things you have to have. And as I've sit in this chair and try to lead this program the right way, I understand every single day there's going to be issues. Every single day, right? I'm going to wake up tomorrow. There's going to be something when I lay my head down, now very, very late tonight, and wake up very, very early, but something in that 4 or 5 hour window that I wasn't expecting that's going to occur that I've got to handle. And that's one of the things I've learned. I've learned to deal and talk to our players in a better light, in a better way. How can I continue to treat them better? And so, lessons in leadership and how do I continue to cultivate the culture? Right, when I first took the job, I was like, well, the culture should just take care. No, hell no. I've got to fight every single day, and especially with the new rules, right, with the guys' ability to go other places. And so I've tried to have a growth mindset in everything I do and continue to get better. But there's a lot, I tell that young coach, continue to trust the process, because there's some hard days. And I'm not asking for anybody to play the small little fiddle for me. I've got the best job in the world, and I'm very grateful, and the university takes care of me very well. But there's challenges, and to have to trust it, right? We go 8-3 the year one, and we had a great great old quarterback in Brady White, and I thought, okay, things are fine. We're going to continue to improve. And you take some bumps when you start a 17-year-old quarterback, and just what I should have told myself is, listen, even back then, continue to ignore the outside noise. Just focus on what you do. Trust the process. Put your head down and grind, because you know what? Putting my head down and grinding is what got me to this job, and that's going to continue if I do that for the rest of my career to lead us to success and just continue to it. But it's hard. We're all human, and we all have, we see things, we feel things, and, just continue to trust that process. And guess what? I'll tell myself that the same thing next year, and there's going to be something I'll learn this year, and we're ever growing.
Ryan, have the guys joked with you about the digital version of yourself on the college football playoff or college football game at all? Have you touched the game? Have you played the game? Have the guys talked to you about it at all?
So there is a digital version of myself. I hope he's very handsome. They probably got Brad Pitt, deal with maybe some Denzel Washington shoulders and some, your abs or something on there. I hope so. But God, that could be an ugly creature. So I hope that the game doesn't reset when it shows my butt on there. But no, I've not played it. I know I'm sure our players have. I've actually, opposite of Ryan Day, I've actually asked them not to play it so much. Let's get sleep. It's our job to show them who the opponents are. But no, I've heard a lot of great things, and I think it's wonderful for the sport. I think it's wonderful for our country that a game that I knew a little bit. I'm older than we think, but that it's out and they're enjoying it, and I think it's fun for them to be able to enjoy and participate and play as themselves. But no, they have not shared a digital version of myself. Maybe you can share that with me.
I know it's only been a few months since the deal came together, but when you were recruiting the last 2 to 3 months, did you notice the FedEx stuff making a difference already?
Everybody, I think one of the things is, right, so many of our players announced their return prior to that FedEx announcement. It's easy to just sit there and say, oh, well, FedEx, that's why. Most of our guys, if you realize, actually said, hey, I'm going to be part of this thing. We're going to run it back prior to that. And so I think that speaks volumes about the type of guys we have in the program and what they want to be a part of. And even in recruiting, I'm not going to throw out there, there's one coach that says we don't talk NIL with high school kids. No, we talk about it. We're very transparent with everything. But we're not one of those schools throwing millions of dollars at every high school recruit. That's just not us. And that's a game that we can't compete in right now. And that's okay. It's our job to bring in a high school guy that wants to be here and develop them. But there's so many great things that have helped us in recruiting, right? You talked about, and I've talked to many of you guys, about the momentum after last season. And part of that, right, the bowl win, 10-win season, the excitement, 12-team playoff. Guys, I think they're going to keep me around for a few more years with this extension, right? Everything that's going on with the stadium. I think there's a lot of excitement moving forward in our program, the FedEx NIL deal, right? And you package all that together, people want to be here. And that's what's so exciting to me. And I think that's certainly helped us in recruiting, Matt.
How are you relying on or challenging guys like Greg Rubin and Vermonte Hamilton to kind of take on some of that leadership void that was lost from guys like Jalen Allen and others?
Yeah, and that's important, right? I think leadership gets harder and harder because, Frank, a lot of these guys, everybody thinks leadership is it commanding and demanding. No, that's not leadership. And each one of our guys has a unique way about how they go about things. Cremonte voices his opinion more, right? He's one to talk to the D-line and get them going and rah-rah them, where Greg is maybe not as vocal, but he's one to go have that side-to-side conversation. And so I meet with a group, our leadership group, and I asked them, okay, what makes you a leader? And guess what? Every single one of them said, hey, what makes me a leader is I do the right thing all the time. Yeah, I do what I'm supposed to do. I show up. No, that's just the price to play college football. Doing what you're supposed to do. Guess what? That's the price to be a citizen. And when football's done, you got to do what you're supposed to do, park in the right spot, show up on time, just to make a wage. And every single one of us got to do what you're supposed to do. So that's not leadership. So I said, okay, Kermonte, tell me what makes you a leader as an individual. What can you do? Right? Greg, what can you do? And it's funny because some of those guys said, hey, one of our guys actually said, I want to be the most empathetic teammate I can be. I want to be there for guys to lean on. I had another guy said, I'm going to be the energy guy at practice. I don't care if I don't start a single game, but I'm going to be the energy guy. Coach, you can count on me. From the time that things kicked off to the fourth quarter, that's what you can lean on me as a leadership. Great. The other guy said, I'm going to teach every young guy the right way to do things. It's my job to bring out along the young guys. Great. And so each one of them picked a leadership characteristic that best suited them. Because what we don't need is 20 rah-rah guys, right? If so, I'll just give them pom-poms and say, hey, let's go get this thing. No, that's not what it's all about. And so teaching them how to lead and continue to show them along the way. But we've had some of those guys step up on defense, and that's what part of training camp is, training them to see who can continue to step up when the times get tough.
Coach, you got a lot of new faces around here. How have you kind of introduced the new faces to the city of Memphis? Because you got new guys, you got guys that have been here for a while. How have you kind of implement them into the city?
Yeah, I mean, I think we would need everybody says, you know all 215 people in your program? We do. And, you know, one of the unique things I do, and I don't know if it's unique, but I think it's important to me, is we need to know everybody's name. So I always have everybody introduce themselves. I have, actually in our players manual, our staff manual, we actually have pictures of our equipment managers. They need to know every single student equipment manager's name. We actually have pictures of our custodial staff. We have the best custodial staff in America right here in our Memphis football program. And I'll hang my hat on that. Like, I'm so happy. Please don't anybody take them away from us, but they're the absolute best. But guess what? Their pictures of our custodial staff is in our manual. And we talk to our guys about, hey, get to know these people because these people work their tails off for us. And then, right? Oh, by the way, we got a new D-line coach. Does everybody get to know him? Do we know this GA, this new? There's so much turnover, and that's part of it. But we got to know everybody's name. We talk about the players getting to know each other. All right, we have group bonding where we're going to get 12 different guys in a group, and they're going to talk and share their life stories. That's part of how we build camaraderie. And I think what I want all of our fans, man, just continue to study our program, continue to watch the newscasts, read the papers, find out about your Memphis Tigers, show up to the games, because I think there's going to be a lot of excitement for those players and the staff that we have out there.
Coach, apologies if you've already been asked this, but you mentioned the massive loss of Blake Watson. Just what do you think of the running back room so far, and who's kind of stepping up to you in your mind?
Yeah, day one, so, there's a lot of work to be done. But, look, Sutton Smith, we know what he's capable of. I think he really showed the rest of the world who he's all about in that bowl game. We've known he's a dynamic special player. Obviously, high hopes for Mario Anderson. He's got to come out and have a healthy camp and compete at a high level. But we know, he led South Carolina in rushing last year. Greg Desoray, all right, is the transfer from UMass. We got a lot of hopes for him and what he can do and his explosiveness. Let's not forget Brandon Thomas, right? Brandon's been a staple here for 5 years. Brandon started that game versus Mississippi State, and I'll say this all the time. Anytime I talk about Brandon Thomas, I talk about his 120-yard game versus Mississippi State and the win. So we got some good stable of running backs. But there's a lot of camp left to go, and we'll see what happens when we put the pads on.
Where are things at? Just obviously we know about Javante, but besides that, is there anybody injury-wise, health-wise, who would be out for an extended period?
As of right now, no. Right? I mean, it's training camp. There's going to be nicks and bruises, and we had some guys step off the field today with cramping. But if there's ever an extended injury that may be seasoned, then I'll make sure I always share it with you. Knock on wood. Hopefully, we don't have that this training camp. But right now, as day one is finished up and at almost 6 o'clock, I think we're okay.
And for Jalen, just obviously he's kind of working his way back. Jalen Nichols in the spring is back.
Jalen Nichols should be full go, and he was today.
You mentioned Mario. Up close and personal, does not look like a fun guy to tackle. And then, as we saw in the spring game, has some breakaway speed as well. Just the dimension that he adds to the team, maybe different than Blake, but the dimension he adds.
Yeah, I think what he has is he has amazing contact balance. Right, I'm not trying to throw some NFL jargon or scouting term.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, great contact balance, good vision, and he runs hard. Right, I think he is. Right? He's a bowling ball of butcher knives. I mean, he's built certainly different than the Sutton Smith. But yeah, I mean, he's got a unique skill level, and I think he's also more athletic than we think. You go back and watch the game versus him, and I vividly remember when he was at South Carolina versus Florida, and the Florida safety took an angle turn on the right sideline and tried to make the tackle. Mario leaped over him, left foot forward, almost like looked like an Olympian hurdler, and was able to do it. So I think he shows more athleticism than we think, and excited to watch that perform on the practice field.
I have to ask you, because I know you gotta get out there. Have you watched the Olympics at all? What events have you tapped into? I know you got a lot of camp going on. Have you watched any events? Took the time at all to watch them?
Yeah, the other day I gave our staff a few days off prior to camp. I tried to turn it on, and then I think it's great. I'm obviously supporting our country, and it's just so unique, right? Like, you can't accuse me of sitting there watching beach volleyball the whole time, even though I kept looking for it. No, it was, but like I got to see the U.S. women's rugby team have success, right? Obviously, I'll butcher her name, but Biles, right? A fantastic gymnast, right? Obviously one of the greatest of all times, and what she's been able to accomplish, right? But as every day goes on, the more we're in the office, I get pulled further and further away. But obviously, some people will share the results with me, and if there's ever anything unique, I think that I can ever share. If there's a significant effort or something about teamwork from the Olympics that I can share with our team, I'm going to do it. If there's something that's not done the right way that I can share with our team, same difference. So there's going to be lessons that will be learned over the next few days that I'll be able to continue to share.
Got time for 2 more questions. If you were going to be an Olympian in any sport, what would it be?
Hot dog eating contest? No, look, I've never been an athlete, I don't. Is boxing still an Olympic sport?
Yeah, it is.
So is breaking if you're a good dancer.
So is what?
Breakdancing.
Breakdancing is now an Olympic sport.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad. One, I'm not allowed to bet, but I would never have guessed it. And I could be one of the top breakdancers in the world. I've just never tried it. So maybe when I retire, hopefully not too soon, I can try breakdancing. But I'd get knocked out, but I'd love to box. Wrestling. Something that doesn't take a lot of athleticism. If anybody ever watches me run on that track in the dark in the morning, you guys might think I'm walking them. It's actually me trying to run. But sometimes you can find me out there maybe running, and if they've got one of those things that look the speed walking deals, that's probably a sport now. I'm sure it is. It is a sport.
Yeah.
No way.
I think it is actually.
You can't take your feet off the ground.
Yeah.
One foot off the ground.
Yeah, well, that's how I look when I run anyway, so I'll be really good. So maybe I'll give up or start speed walking, or I don't think I'm tough enough to do the rugby thing. Maybe I could, and I don't shoot a basketball well enough, so maybe I'll start jiu-jitsu or water polo.
Can you tread water?
I can tread water, but let's not test that. Let's not hey Ryan, why don't you tread water for us for 30 minutes and see if you can stay up. Fencing, maybe something I could take up. Yeah, let me get through the next 10 years of my career, and then so the Olympics is every 4 years.
Yep.
So let's get through 10 more years of coaching,
36.
and then I need 2 years to train for. It's probably going to be in Memphis. Let's start that movement now. So what year will that be? The
2036.
2036 Olympics in Memphis, right? Let's take over the pyramid. The stadium will probably have another renovation by then. We could even, I'm sure the Coliseum will still be standing. I think that will be great. The Mid-South Coliseum. Me and Jerry Lawler could, maybe come out and I could do the thing with the torch. So let's start the movement. 2036 Olympics in Memphis. Be there, be square. All right. Appreciate you guys coming out. Have a great day. Go Tigers.